You ever have a day start so normal, it almost feels like the universe is setting you up for something? That was me, sipping coffee on the porch of my family's old lake house, thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd get a break from all the noise, when Eleanor Scott locked eyes with me and said, "Jacob, this house was promised to my son. You're just holding it for him." I nearly dropped my mug. Right there. I mean, how does someone get so bold they claim your home, the one your granddad built with his bare hands, just because they slapped HOA president on their front door? I'm not kidding. My lake house on Silver Willow had stood for decades before her HOA even existed. Now here she was, acting like it was her personal inheritance for her pampered 7-year-old who probably can't even spell lawnmower, let alone push one. But that, my friend, was just the first little tremor. What followed was a landslide, fake fines, anonymous threats, vandalism in the dead of night, and the piece de resistance, a forged deed designed to wipe out everything my family left behind. But you know what? I wasn't about to bow to some self-crowned tyrant hiding behind neighborhood bylaws. My name's Jacob Turner, and I fought back with law, receipts, and every stubborn ounce of Turner grit that survived 3 generations by this lake. Let me set the scene. The sun was just rising over Silver Willow when I rolled down the gravel drive to that cabin, the one my grandfather William built back in '72, long before this place became a magnet for glass-walled vacation homes and dock parties. The world was quiet, just birds and mist, and a peace so pure you'd forget the world ever held a grudge. It still smelled like cedar and pipe smoke. And every plank creaked the same way it did when I was a kid, tiptoeing around while Grandpa whittled ducks by the window. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, paid off, private, and protected by history. Of course, the neighborhood changed, like a lot. The old fishing cabins were bulldozed, replaced with McMansions and folks with more cash than common sense. They weren't bad people. Mostly, just the kind who think hard work means hiring a good contractor. But money brought something worse than noisy parties: the Silver Willow Lakeside Homeowners Association. Now, here's the thing. My granddad's place predated that HOA by 23 years. County records said it clear as day. Turner's plot was carved out before the subdivision even had a name, which means, legally, I was never part of their little club. Couldn't be forced in, either. State law protected me, but people like Eleanor Scott, she never cared for the fine print. She was the type to glide around, like she owned the sky, hair perfect, voice sharp enough to cut glass. President for 6 years and counting, famous for petty fines and power trips. I'd seen her circling my property in that pearl white Lexus, scowling like she was the IRS and I was hiding gold under the porch. I used to think she was just nosy. Turns out, she was plotting. That became crystal clear one spring afternoon when I got home from the store, arms full, and heard those sharp heels on gravel. She strode up, all confidence, and started in on me about vacating the property for her son Aiden's 18th birthday. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Promised by who? I asked. By me, she answered, cool as ice. Apparently, the HOA was expanding community access, and Aiden was destined to lead the charge. Progress, she called it. Now, I've heard some wild things in my day, but that one took the cake. I told her straight. This was private property, family land, 50 years strong. Her smile dropped, and she fired back that, being surrounded by HOA members, I was now subject to community standards. I reminded her she was surrounded by me. She didn't like that, stormed off, heels stabbing dirt. Like little exclamation points. I figured that was the end. Nope. 3 days later, a violation notice showed up taped to my mailbox. Non-compliant front door knocker. Thing is, I didn't even have a door knocker. Then came improper lawn maintenance, grass excessively wet. My backyard is the lake shore. The grass is always wet. By week's end, I had a pile of these citations, all on fake letterhead, all unsigned by any real officer. There wasn't even a Silver Willow enforcement division. I checked. Eleanor was making them up herself. So, I started doing what Grandpa always said to do with bullies: document everything. Letters, envelopes, mailbox cam footage, you name it. And you know what? Every letter was mailed from Eleanor's personal P.O. box. Then the harassment ramped up. Trash dumped on my lawn. My mailbox smashed. Get out spray painted on the sidewalk. They never touched the house, probably under strict orders to leave their future prize undamaged. It was time to fight back for real. I called Marcus Hale, local lawyer, sharp as a tack, dry sense of humor. He took one look at the evidence and said, "She's either stupid or overconfident. Either way, she'll regret this." He helped me file a harassment report and a cease and desist, citing state law. My home predated the HOA, and their rules didn't apply. For a while, things calmed down. No more letters. No more midnight surprises. I was almost sleeping again. Then, just as I started to relax, voices woke me at midnight. Whispers, crunching gravel. The sound of glass breaking. Through the window, I saw 3 teenagers by the dock, flashlights glinting. One wore Aiden Scott's varsity jacket. I hit record on my phone, grabbed my registered. Always legal, shotgun for safety, and stepped onto the porch. Private property. Leave now. They hesitated until I flicked on the floodlight and made sure my gun was pointed at the ground. Safety. On. They tore out of there so fast, you'd think I'd yelled free labor. That night, I filed another report. The police actually listened this time. "You're not the first to complain about the Scotts," one officer said, which made me realize Eleanor wasn't just flexing on me for fun. She was testing how far she could go. I didn't know it yet, but she was about to cross a line nobody could ignore. A week later, I woke up to another stack of bogus fines, this one topped with final notice, forfeiture of property rights under community ordinance. She typed it like she was her own. Little government. Instead of tearing them up, I photographed every page, filed them away, and took them to Marcus. His office smelled like old paper and determination. "She's impersonating a government agency now," he said. "This is fraud. Let's remind her the law bites harder than any HOA." He sent another cease and desist, copied to the sheriff's department. 3 days later, Eleanor's Lexus idled at my driveway for a full minute. No wave, just a stare that would have frozen a lake. After that, things got quiet. I fixed up the dock. Neighbors started waving again, like, maybe, just maybe, the madness had gone too far. But peace never lasts long when someone like Eleanor feels power slipping away. One Saturday, I spotted 2 men in a car across the street, pretending to read a map. Then my trash was dumped. Security cam caught the back of a hoodie and Eleanor's Lexus waiting down the block. The next letter was handwritten, just signed E.S. Jacob. "It doesn't have to be this way. Transfer the deed, and I'll make sure you're compensated. Otherwise, don't blame me." Marcus said not to answer. Keep everything. Build a record. If she kept it up, maybe even racketeering. Summer rolled in, and the lake should have been peace, but I kept catching Eleanor watching me from her mansion. Then one humid night, my cameras caught the Scotts sneaking around again. Aiden kicked over my no trespassing sign. I called the sheriff, upgraded the cameras and locks, even replaced the mailbox with a steel one you'd need a tank to break. Eleanor changed tactics. Rumors spread. I was a squatter under tax fraud investigation. Marcus called it defamation. If it goes to court, hearsay will bury her. I kept my head down until one hot afternoon when Eleanor herself waltzed up my driveway, clipboard in hand, sun hat big enough to land a helicopter on. "I'm here to conduct an inspection for compliance." I told her to get lost. She smirked. "We updated the association's boundaries. Board voted to include your parcel." I couldn't believe it. You can't just vote to take someone's house. Her smile was pure ice. You'd be surprised what a community can do when it's united. That chilled me. That night, I made a decision. If she wanted a fight, she was getting it, but on my terms. Marcus and I pulled every county record we could find. Sure enough, my property was clearly excluded, Lot 14A, excluded due to pre-existing private deed. Ironclad. Marcus grinned. "She can't touch you, Jacob. Not legally. But people like Eleanor? They don't care what's legal, only what they can get away with." Then, one Friday, a county truck pulled in. Here for a preliminary inspection, ordered by Silver Willow. HOA, boundary dispute. I told the guy there was no dispute, but he said my name was flagged for a deed review. That meant someone tried to file a transfer or alteration, and I already knew who. Marcus and I literally went digging in the basement of the county clerk's office, and there it was, a quitclaim deed, transferring my house to Aiden Scott, signed Jacob Turner. It wasn't my handwriting. The notary seal? Expired 6 months ago. and the notary's stamp had been reported stolen. Turns out, we weren't the only victims. The clerk said someone had submitted bogus transfers for other old parcels too, trying to sneak them into the HOA for future development. Marcus froze the file, locked my title. The DA opened a fraud investigation. A few nights later, my cameras caught Aiden and a friend sneaking back, carrying something metallic. I got their faces on camera. The next day, Marcus handed everything to the DA. "This is a textbook case," she said. Marcus dove into the HOA's bylaws. "Your lot's not on their map. Any letter they sent is not just invalid. It's mail fraud. The feds love mail fraud." 2 federal inspectors in suits hotter than. Hades showed up, took my binders and envelopes. One grinned. "You did good, Mr. Turner. This feud just turned federal." But Eleanor wasn't done. I got a formal complaint from a lawyer she hired. Herself, not the board, accusing me of interfering with community operations and threatening residents. Marcus called it pure intimidation. He responded with counterclaims and mailed copies of everything to her attorney. The attorney dropped her within 48 hours. Watching that collapse in real time was like watching a sandcastle hit by a tidal wave. The county started subpoenaing records. And sure enough, Eleanor's fines were going straight into her personal bank account. Multiple emails to Aiden about handling Turner's property quietly. The DA called. "We've got enough to charge her 3 times over." Still, I watch my back. You never know with folks like her. Then, the storm hit, literally. Thunder, wind, the whole lake turning wild. And Eleanor, soaked, clutching a clipboard, marched up my driveway, yelling about community emergency protocol. I laughed. There was no Silver Willow Safety Committee. She screamed about losing control. And for the first time, I saw she was unraveling. I told her to leave. She spat. "You won't have this house by the end of the week," and sped off into the night. The next morning, the DA intercepted another forged deed. Eleanor was escalating. Marcus warned me, "Don't confront her. Just call the police." That night, I found a USB drive buried by the dock, loaded with digital copies of fake HOA forms and, crucially, a forged deed with eskit at silverwillow.org. In the metadata, Marcus called it the smoking gun. He turned everything over to the state investigators. That night, I watched Eleanor and Aiden try one last time, sneaking up my drive, Aiden holding a crowbar. Before they could do anything, the sheriff's team swept in. They were cuffed in the rain. Eleanor screaming about running the neighborhood. "Not anymore," the deputy said. The next morning, Marcus called. They found the stolen notary seal in her office. "She's charged with forgery, mail fraud, and harassment. It's over." But it wasn't. The news spread, neighbors switched sides faster than you could say scandal, and Eleanor, in orange jailhouse chic, started giving interviews, claiming I'd framed her. The internet, predictably, went wild. People picked sides based on whichever headline made them angriest. When her trial started, Eleanor represented herself for part of it. She tried to turn the courtroom into her stage, but when the DA played those recordings we found, her own voice outlining her plot, the room went silent. Guilty on all counts. She got 22 years. The HOA dissolved. The county put up a plaque on my property line marking the spot where her control ended. It wasn't a clean victory. There were threats, creepy notes, even talk of resurrecting the HOA under a new name. But one by one, those efforts fizzled. The lake community started to heal, real conversations across fences, kids laughing on the docks again. I rebuilt what was broken, and each nail I hammered felt like closing the book on one nightmare. In the end, justice crawled its way home. The lesson? Silence protects bullies, not victims. People like Eleanor thrive on the fear of good folks staying quiet. If you're listening and you've ever been pushed around by an HOA, a boss, or anybody in power, remember this. You have more power than you think. Use it. And if you've made it this far, drop your city in the comments, tell me your story, and subscribe if you think the world needs to hear more of these fights. Because in the world of HOAs, there's always another storm coming, and you never know who'll be the next to stand up and say, "Not today."